Before we begin, I want to take a moment to honor the cultures behind the stories we are about to explore. The tales shared here come from many peoples, lands, and traditions. I do not change these stories to fit modern expectations or to align with today's social standards. Instead, I present them as they were told, sometimes beautiful, sometimes harsh, sometimes challenging. We are not here to judge the past, but to understand it, to listen, to learn, and to honor the ancestors who carried these stories forward. We also share stories from various religious traditions. These are presented in their historical and spiritual context, with respect for their beliefs that they represent. Every culture deserves respect, context, and acknowledgement, and this space is dedicated to doing exactly that. Story 1. Hiroshima Taro and the Palace Beneath the Sea. The fishing village rested along a quiet stretch of coastline where pine-covered hills met the sea. Each morning the fishermen pushed their boats into the waves before dawn, and each evening they returned with the day's catch as lanterns flickered to life along the shore. Among them lived a young fisherman named Hiroshima Taro, known throughout the village for his kindness and gentle nature. He spent his days upon the water, casting nets into the blue depths and watching the changing moods of the sea, which could appear as calm as polished glass one day and as wild as a storm god's temper the next. One spring afternoon, while walking along the beach, Hiroshima noticed a group of children surrounding a sea turtle. They laughed and shouted as they poked at the frightened creature, treating it as a toy rather than a living being. Hiroshima quickly intervened, sending the children away and carefully lifting the turtle onto his arms. The animal trembled as he carried it to the water's edge and released it into the waves. For a moment, the turtle lingered near the surface, as though studying the fisherman who had shown it mercy. Then it disappeared beneath the sea, leaving only ripples behind. Several days later, while fishing far from shore, Hiroshima saw an enormous turtle emerge from the water beside his boat. To his astonishment, the creature spoke, revealing itself to be the very turtle he had rescued. It thanked him for his compassion and invited him to visit Rigu Zhao, the dragon palace said to lie beneath the sea. Though he had heard stories of such places since childhood, he never imagined they were real. Curiosity and wonder stirred within him. Leaving behind the familiar world of nets, boats, and village life, he accepted the invitation and climbed upon the turtle's back. The journey carried him beneath the waves into a realm unlike anything he had ever seen. Schools of silver fish moved through gardens of coral that glowed with colors brighter than gemstones. Towers of pearl rose from the ocean floor, while sea currents drifted through palace halls like silk banners. There he was welcomed by the beautiful princess, Otohime, who greeted him with kindness and hospitality. Days passed in celebration, music, and marvels beyond imagination. Yet, as Hiroshima wandered the palace corridors and gazed through crystal windows into the endless sea, he slowly realized something profound. The farther he traveled into this wondrous realm, the more distant his former life became. At first, thoughts of home came easily. He remembered the village, the smell of salt on the docks, and the faces of family and friends. Yet as time passed, those memories grew softer around the edges. The Dragon Palace was beautiful, but every step deeper into its halls carried him farther from the life he had known. The horizon had already been crossed. The fishermen who had left the shore could not simply return unchanged. Standing within the palace of the sea, surrounded by wonders beyond moral understanding, Hiroshima felt the quiet truth that every great journey eventually reveals. There comes a point when the road behind us no longer exists as it once did, and the only path remaining is the one ahead. Story 2. Antara ibn Shaddad leaves the desert of his youth. The desert stretched beyond sight in every direction, its dunes rising and falling like golden waves beneath an endless sky. During the day, sunlight blazed across the sands until the horizon shimmered like a mirage. At night, the stars appeared so numerous that the heavens seemed woven from silver threads. It was within this vast landscape that Antara ibn Shaddad grew to manhood, learning the skills of survival, horsemanship, and poetry among the tribes whose lives were shaped by the rhythms of the desert. Though Antar possessed remarkable strength and courage, his early life was marked by hardship. Born to a noble father and enslaved mother, He struggled to earn recognition within a society that often judged lineage as much as character. Yet the desert has little interest in human prejudice. It rewards resilience, endurance, and determination. As the years passed, Antar proved himself again and again through acts of bravery that won the admiration of those who witnessed them. Still, his greatest journey had not yet begun. The turning point arrived when conflict and destiny called him beyond the familiar boundaries of his homeland. Until then, the desert had been both teacher and shelter. Every dune, well, and caravan route carried memories of childhood. Every campfire gathering connected him to the people among whom he had been raised. Yet there comes a moment in many heroic tales when the familiar world can no longer contain the person the hero is becoming. For Antar, that moment arrived beneath a burning sky as he prepared to ride beyond the horizon toward challenges that would test every skill he possessed. Mounted upon a swift horse, he traveled through landscapes both beautiful and unforgiving. Days passed beneath relentless sunlight, while nights brought cold winds sweeping across the sands. Caravans appeared in the distance like drifting ships upon a golden sea. Travelers exchanged stories of distant kingdoms, fierce battles, and opportunities waiting beyond the next range of dunes. With every mile Antar rode, the world grew larger. The concerns that once seemed immense became smaller against the scale of the journey unfolding before him. As the sun set one evening, painting the desert in shapes of crimson and gold, Antar paused upon a ridge and looked back. The lands of his youth stretched behind him, fading into the gathering dusk. Ahead lay uncertainty, danger, and the possibility of greatness. In that quiet moment, he understood that a horizon is more than a line separating earth and sky. It is a threshold. Once crossed, it changes the traveler forever. The comfort of the known world remains behind while the unknown opens before them. Turning his horse toward the fading light, Antar continued onward, carrying with him the courage to leave behind what was familiar in pursuit of what awaited beyond the edge of sight. Story 3. Kupe and the Long White Cloud. The ocean stretched beyond imagination, an endless world of rolling blue swells beneath vast skies where seabirds wheeled upon the wind and clouds drifted like islands suspended in the heavens. For generations, Polynesian navigators crossed these waters using knowledge passed from master to student, reading the stars, currents, winds, and movements of living creatures as carefully as others might read words upon a page. The sea was not an empty wilderness to them. It was a living pathway connecting distant lands and countless stories. Yet even among such accomplished voyagers, there remained horizons no one ever had crossed, and destinations no one had yet discovered. According to Maori tradition, the great navigator, Kupe, stood upon the shore of his homeland preparing for a voyage unlike any before it. The familiar coastline stretched behind him, marked by forests, villages, and places filled with memory. Before him waited only open ocean. His canoe had been carefully prepared, provisions gathered, and companions chosen, but none of these preparations could answer the questions that lingered within every heart. What lay beyond the horizon? Would they find new lands or only endless sea? The uncertainty was immense, yet the call to venture outward proved stronger than the comfort of remaining behind. As the voyage began, the shoreline gradually disappeared into the distance. First, the trees vanished, then the hills, and finally, even the memory of land seemed swallowed by the horizon itself. Days became weeks. The voyagers rose with the dawn and slept beneath skies crowded with stars. They watched the flight of seabirds, studied the shapes of clouds, and trusted the ancient knowledge carried within their traditions. The ocean revealed both beauty and hardship. Gentle days brought sparkling waters and favorable winds, while storms tested the strength of both canoe and crew. With every sunrise, the homeland grew farther away, and with every sunset, the possibility of turning back became less real. Eventually, there came a moment when the voyagers understood they had crossed an invisible threshold. The sea behind them was as vast as the sea ahead. Returning home would require the same courage as continuing forward. The journey had consumed the certainty and comfort they had possessed. Yet in its place, something new had emerged. The crew no longer measured themselves by where they had come from, but by where they were willing to go. The horizon had transformed from a boundary into an invitation. Then, one morning, a remarkable sight appeared. Far ahead, a long white cloud stretched across the sky unlike any cloud they had seen before. Beneath it lay the outline of distant land rising from the sea. The voyagers gazed in wonder as mountains emerged from the mist and forests covered unfamiliar shores. The crossing had changed them forever. They had left behind the world they knew and entered one they could never have imagined. Looking upon the land later called Aotearoa, Kupe understood that every great voyage demands a sacrifice. Comfort, certainty, and familiarity are surrendered so that discovery, growth, and possibility can take their place. Story 4. Lemminkäinen's Road to the North. Across the forests and lakes of ancient Finland, where mist drifted above still waters and pine-covered hills rolled toward distant horizons, stories were told of heroes whose adventures carried them into realms both magical and dangerous. Among the most famous of these figures was Lemminkäinen, a bold and restless hero whose confidence often led him toward challenges others wisely avoided. He was young, skilled, and eager for glory. Yet, like many heroes of old, he would discover that ambition carries a price. The road of greatness rarely allows a traveler to remain comfortable for long. One autumn evening, word reached Lemminkäinen of a great feast to be held in the distant land of Pohjola. The North was a place woven deeply into Finnish mythology, a realm of powerful magic, mysterious rulers, and formidable challenges. Many regarded it with caution. The journey itself was difficult, requiring travelers to cross vast forests, icy rivers, and lonely stretches of wilderness, where the ordinary world seemed to fade into something older and stranger. Yet the warning only stretched Lemminkäinen's resolve. Where others saw danger, he saw opportunity. He decided he would travel north and claim a place among the heroes whose names endured through the ages. His mother, wise in the ways of both people and fate, sensed the dangers awaiting him. She urged caution and reminded him that not every challenge needed to be accepted. The world contained forces that could not be overcome through confidence alone. Lemminkäinen listened respectfully, but the desire to pursue his destiny burned too strongly within him. At dawn, he prepared his horse, gathered his weapons, and set out from the familiar lands of his youth. As he rode away, the forest behind him seemed filled with memories of childhood, family, and safety. Ahead stretched only uncertainty. The farther he traveled, the more the landscape changed. Dense woodlands gave way to lonely marshes where fog drifted close to the earth. Rivers wound through dark valleys and distant hills appeared like shadows against the sky. Travelers became rare, villages disappeared. Even the sounds of birds grew less frequent. The journey demanded endurance, patience, and courage. Yet with every mile, another realization slowly emerged. The road itself was changing him. The comforts and certainties that had once defined his world were falling away. In their place grew something stronger, a willingness to face whatever awaited beyond the next horizon. As evening settled across the northern wilderness, Lemminkäinen paused beside a quiet lake and gazed toward a fading light. Somewhere beyond those distant forests lay Pohjola and the trials that would shape the rest of his story. Turning back remained possible in theory, but not in spirit. The choice had already been made. The quest had claimed him. Looking into the still waters reflecting the first stars of night, he understood that every great journey eventually reaches a point where comfort must be exchanged for growth. The horizon ahead was uncertain, but it was now the only direction that mattered. Daily Thread for June 7th, The Horizon. There comes a moment in every great journey where the traveler looks back and realizes that the world they left behind no longer exists in quite the same way. Hiroshima Taro crossed beneath the waves into a realm where time itself moved differently, while Antara rode beyond the familiar boundaries of his youth toward a destiny larger than the life he had known. Kupe watched his homeland disappear beyond the horizon as the endless ocean opened before him. Lemminkäinen left the safety of home to pursue a road that would carry him toward challenges, wonders, and transformations he could not yet imagine. None of them knew exactly what awaited ahead, yet each discovered the same truth. Every quest eventually demands a sacrifice. Comfort must be exchanged for possibility. Certainty must be surrendered to discovery. The familiar shoreline, trusted path, or well-worn road cannot accompany us forever. Yet this is not a story of loss. It is a story of becoming. Horizons do not merely separate what is known from what is unknown. They invite us into a larger world than the one we have already seen. The traveler who dares to cross them may never return unchanged. But that is often the purpose of the journey itself. Growth asks us to release the person we were so that we can meet the person waiting beyond the edge of sight, where the sky touches the earth and the next chapter begins.